Good evening. I'd like to call the September 19th regular board meeting to order. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business and is not to be considered a public community meeting. There is a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Chambers, if you call roll, please.
Mr. Nichols.
Present.
Ms. Pritchard.
Here.
Mr. West.
Here.
Mr. Ross.
Here.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I request a motion for approval of the minutes from the rescheduled regular meeting of August 22nd, 2022.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the rescheduled regular meeting on August 22nd.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Are there any comments, questions, or changes that need to be made for these minutes? Hearing none, Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additions, removals, or modifications for the board agenda this evening?
No, I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mr.
Consent
Ross.
agenda.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. West. Mr. Chambers?
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Yes.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable?
Well, good evening. We've got several exciting presentations for you this evening. I'm going to go a little bit off script here real quick, though, because I think there's some important things to mention. First of all, I did have books for each of our board members. We're doing some leadership training throughout the course of the year with our central office team, and just wanted to invite our board to read along with the work that we're doing. And I'd be more than happy to grab a cup of coffee with any one of you and talk about them if you want to. But secondly, I'm sure you all saw in the media that the new state report cards were released across the state. And I wanted to say that I'm very proud of our school district. I want to take a moment to really commend all of our educators. When I say educators, I mean each and every employee, including our board members of the school district, everybody that does their part to help our students grow into young adults, both academically, but also with life skills as well. We've worked through some challenging times over the past several years with the pandemic. At the same time, we've worked diligently with all of our educators to implement new initiatives despite the challenges. And the ultimate goal is to provide the best academics for our students. And it's nice to see state test scores come back indicating that we are improving in regards to our performance based off of the report card. In terms of the state report card, I do think it is an important measuring tool. It is something we use and we look at. However, in looking at the state report card, I hold a very large amount of value in what we're doing every day within our classrooms and the assessments that are being utilized at the building level in each of our buildings to monitor the progress of our students. But to see what we're monitoring within our buildings and within our classrooms is being reflected on the state report card level is really nice to see. And I'm going to gloat here a little bit, but we are ranked 56th in the state out of over 600 districts. And we were number 2 here in Medina County on our report card. And I say that biting my tongue a little bit, and the reason why is because I have served on the BASA State Report Card Committee the last several years working with other superintendents in Columbus to advocate for changes to our state report card. And the goal is to move the state report card to a tool that is more equitable and more of a tool to help educators and students. And the reason why I bite my tongue is if you look at the new report card, multiple districts are ranked at similar levels. And the reason why is we are working with the states to move away from rank order of school districts because that's not what's best for students. It's about looking at the achievement as a state in a collaborative way where we want all students in Ohio to be successful, not competing one community against the other, but working together to make all students in our state successful. And I really do feel like that we have come a step closer. We're not completely there, but we have come a step closer. So that's something to be proud of. Our curriculum department is going to be at our meeting next month, and they're going to share with the board more detailed information about our state report card. So I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty tonight. And at this time, I would like to invite Mina Pazitka up to the front. She has been working in her department alongside with the curriculum department at some special education curriculum.
Yes, thank you so much for having me and giving me the opportunity to share. So we've been working in our department since last spring with our intensive needs teachers at the secondary level, along with our transition coordinators, Emily Esquia and Kayla Dean, who work primarily at our high school, to kind of take a look at some curriculum, because when our students with the most intensive needs are looking to transition out of the high school into community employment or whatever they're going to be doing outside after they graduate, we really want to give them the skills and tools they need to be successful. So what can we be doing for them at the high school level to make sure that happens? So we brought a team together and did a lot of research and came up with this curriculum that I want to share tonight, which is called Job Ready, Life Ready. So what is this curriculum? This looks at career education, job preparation, and life skills for all of our learners. It's hands-on, it's competency-based, it's adaptable activities that promote career awareness and those tangible, measurable skills and independent living for all of our students. All students that are on an IEP, at the time that they turn 14, there is a transition section for every single student, regardless of their disability, just by the nature of being on an IEP. We need to look at transition for every single one of those students. Some students might be going to college, some students might not be going to college, but our job as an IEP team and as a district is to prepare them. So some of the highlights in this curriculum is making sure that we're engaging them in activities that are connected to the standards and evidence-based practices. Right now, our teachers are phenomenal, and they're using a lot of practices, but they're kind of just pulling from a bunch of different things. And what we're really trying to do here is use something that is research-based. This is approved by CASE and the Department of Education. It really boosts everything up to kind of the next level here with data collection tools for them to use. It's easy to implement. It aligns to Common Core and aligned to the U.S. Department of Labor. So once those students, they're really acquiring the skills to kind of enter like a job entry level position once they have kind of completed a kit, which I'll talk about on some further slides here. So different levels for different learners. The great thing about this curriculum is it's really adaptable to multiple levels of learners. So I talk about our students that have some really intensive needs at our high school. We also have some students that are in some of our life skills programming here at the high school. And then we have some of our students that are at the Bowman House. And our students that are at the Bowman House are those students who have completed all of their academics at the high school, but then go on, because some of our students with special needs, we continue to educate them until the age of 22. So our students at the Bowman House are still learning some of those daily living skills. We're connecting them to some work opportunities. So this curriculum is something that can also be used for those students. So there are different levels and models of support within this curriculum that we can provide for our students. So we can scaffold it in several different ways. And in the purchase of the curriculum, we're able to use, a lot of universal design and modify this to meet students' needs. So there's an advanced, intermediate, and entry level for each of these kits. And what we want to do with our students is really push them to the greatest extent of mastery for each of them. So there are several different career pathways and career choices. There are 21 different careers for students to explore, which is really great. Again, it looks at beginner, intermediate, and advanced career choices. It's adapted. It's for those students that maybe want to go to the Career Center and go into cosmetology, but they don't have the skill set to go into the cosmetology center. So we can get a kit for cosmetology, and they can learn the skills to maybe get an entry-level position in a salon. Sanitizing equipment and the materials there, sweeping, learning to answer the phones. So we can prepare them to go into those positions. So just providing them with those job skills training. The Life Ready curriculum will be teaching independent skills, some of the things that we do already at the Bowman House, that banking, shopping, looking at housing options, kitchen safety, cooking. Self-confidence and social skills is really important for these students, improving their communication, self-confidence, learning about learning about bullying, internet safety, health and nutrition, creating and building healthy meals for themselves, first aid and hygiene. We can use this Life Ready curriculum in conjunction with PE and health teachers to adapt some courses for some of our more intensive needs students. So this really connects to some of those real life activities and is really relevant for them. It's evidence-based practices for that transition piece for those students, and again, that universal design for learning supports. It really helps students interact with the materials and tools. It aligns with the extended standards, so our students with intensive needs, we have our grade level standards for all of our students, but some of our students require those extended standards. This curriculum matches the needs in the extended standards, so that's really nice. And then it's differentiated for students. There are some learning stations that can be set up, looking at students' strengths and their limitations. A lot of times right now, we'll be using a survey to kind of gain what a student's strengths or weaknesses might be. And if we have a nonverbal student, that can be kind of difficult. So now what we could do is, this curriculum comes with a bunch of work boxes that are real simulations of what they might be doing in an environment, like a restaurant box might have the silverware and rolling the silverware, or different pieces of like menus. So we can set up different stations for different career paths for students to actually go and engage with the material, so we can have a better understanding of what their interests might be, rather than just going through a survey with them. So I kind of got ahead of myself here of what's in a kit. But again, it's the real tools that they would use on the job. There's a parent involvement piece here where there's a brochure for each of the kits that would be shared with families. It's specially designed, it's easily customizable and adapted. It really helps engage them in the activities and motivates the students, because it's the real life material. It's not like an adapted play material. So students are able to earn credential badges for each of the areas that they master, and this helps them pursue community employment and build their resumes. This also helps in terms of when they're really getting close to adult employment. We partner with OOD, Opportunities for Ohioans with Disabilities. This really broadens categories when we're working with them for adult services on what our students' interests are as they're looking for employment in the community. And just some examples and benefits for some of our students. Right now, we have students working at Goodwill for work experience, and then we have some non-compete programs at the Career Center, and then we have students at Bowman. So we can use this curriculum in all of those different settings just to do more in-house to prepare them. And then also, here in the high school, looking at transitioning our students into the adult world, giving them this curriculum, again, to just kind of build their experiences. It really does improve their outcomes from transitioning from school to community work. It really helps collect measurable data, looking at job skills and strengths. It can prepare our students for looking at work training programs at the Career Center after they leave us. And then there is a piece in this curriculum that works on student resumes and building their resumes and just preparing them for that community employment. So there's a lot of really wonderful things about this curriculum. This last piece just talks a little bit about purchasing the curriculum. And when you really look at the overall price for the curriculum, and think about, we're bringing all of this in-house. The cost of this, when you think about what it would cost for us to take students to actual job sites to have these experiences, this cost is pretty minimal. Or the cost to maybe send a student to a different program. This is something that we can use for all of our kids. It's about 40 to 50 kids right now that would be directly impacted and interacting with this kit on a daily basis. But we do have an opportunity to extend the use of this program down into our middle school because I shared, we start looking at transition at age 14. So that is at middle school. So, we have some really great staff here in Medina that have worked really, really hard. Katie Hartung has really brought together our intensive needs teams to take a look and do some research on all of this. And I feel really good about this and really confident. And Emily Esquia and Kayla Dean deserve a lot of credit here too, as they have really kind of supported this and backed this curriculum up. So thanks for letting me share. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Mrs. Pizzica, for presenting to the board. I know as part of the curriculum committee, you and your staff and some teachers came last Monday, I think, to present, and it was great. They're so excited about the program, and they've really done a lot of research and have spent a lot of time researching it. So we appreciate that. When we do textbook adoptions, I know those are available for 30 days for the public. Is there something similar if people wanted to see like what a life kit was, or is that available for review at all?
So we don't have a life kit, but we can absolutely get one. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Mina, we used to do a program, the C3PO. Is this similar to that, or is this completely different?
This is completely different.
Okay, because that used to be with, I think, the special ed kids in their careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
totally different. Okay, all right, good. But what you presented sounds absolutely wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And next up, it's exciting to have our buildings back to present. None better than to kick us off after a 3-year hiatus than Garfield. Principal McGinty, exciting to have you here today. Garfield continues to be leaders in our district in terms of initiatives for our students, whether it's been PBIS, the implementation of makerspaces, new curricular initiatives. Yet tonight we have another lead that Garfield is taking in our district and setting a great example. So thank you for being here.
Thanks. And we're really excited to be here tonight. I'm here tonight with Wendy Podolak, and she is a first grade teacher at Garfield Elementary and has helped be really instrumental in helping us get this connection with the Browns Foundation called Stay in the Game. The Stay in the Game, I happened to be scrolling through email one afternoon, and I saw this initiative called Stay in the Game, and it had to do with improving school attendance. And as we went through the pandemic, this was last year, where we were already 2 years into it, and I thought, we have a whole policy in place that Garfield follows, but it doesn't seem to really resonate with anyone. You know, it's not really having an impact on parents. It isn't having an impact for kids. We're doing all the right things that we know we're supposed to do, but we needed something. This approached it from a completely different spin, and that's often what works that we found at Garfield. That rather than turning things into something punitive where you're getting scary letters or threats of calls to Job and Family Services, this completely upended that. And we delved in last year. We called the Browns and they said, well, you're really past the deadline and it's supposed to be a whole district initiative. And I said, oh, but it would really help us out. And, you know, we're a really great school. And then I went down and talked to Wendy, whose husband happens to be the art director for the Browns. And that helped a little bit, I think. And we got in. Maybe. And it was such a great experience. And as you can see, we listed there some of the things that we did last year to kick off the Stay in the Game initiative. Every kid in the school got a t-shirt. And because we were so late in the game, they didn't have enough for the whole school. So PTO generously kicked in for the rest of the kids and staff. We expanded our building attendance committee. We got a lot more teachers involved in talking about attendance. We developed a whole new PD section of our PBIS team where we talked about attendance and what teachers could do in order to enhance and make attendance better. Wendy, you kind of chaired that team a little bit with the people that were on it. I do think it built excitement. Do you feel that way?
I do. I think the best thing about this program is, like she said, it was a positive way to encourage and incentivize the kids to come to school, not just come to school, but be there on time. Because when you're late, some of them are coming 30, 45 hour late, and they're missing really important instruction at the beginning of the day. So that helped with this as well.
Mm-hmm. And so Wendy and her team shared a lot of attendance research at staff meetings. I learned a lot of things through my involvement with the foundation. They are partnered with Harvard, and there's a special school or function within Harvard University that studies attendance, and some of the things they shared were really good tools for me to think about as a principal. They said that parents oftentimes respond better to texts rather than phone calls. And think about your own phone. Like, a lot of times they won't pick it up, like, I don't know that number, I'm not going to pick it up, or I don't know what they want, or it catches them cold and makes them feel uncomfortable. But if you send a text saying, hey, listen, we're having a day tomorrow where we're going to celebrate attendance, make sure you're there, or reaching out to a parent, even one-on-one, hey, could you give me a call and can we talk about this? It seemed to, I really did notice, so that's something I really adopted, using more texts, being more intentional about newsletters and more often, so especially throughout the summer. So this summer, I really focused on sending out more newsletters, little bits of information, keeping parents engaged in things and doing it through their phone. We can use a great new thing that Amy Busby shared with us, the S'more website, which lets you generate these great newsletters, and they're so easy to read on a cell phone. We did some staff commercials, getting it kicked off. If you could show one of those, Craig, it would be good. They were funny, that the teachers made. And we were virtual when we did this, I think. The kids weren't with us yet, so we were trying to get them excited during one of those little periods. And we had 4 student attendance days throughout the year. And Wendy and I sat down and we planned them out through the trimesters because we didn't have a lot of stuff to go on. The Browns were really nice to us, but by that point when we got on board, they didn't have a lot. Like, we've seen the difference this year being full on, like we're a full member this year, but I felt like we didn't have as much last year to work with, did we?
I agree, but it was really great. We sat and planned days that we thought might be difficult for kids to come. So let's say, like this Thursday would be a great day to have a raffle and an incentive for kids to come, because we know they don't have to come on Friday. So we were picking days like that we knew would be really important. So that was nice to plan that ahead. Now that we have this jump on it, we know exactly what we're doing, right?
So we hosted different events that didn't require, the Browns gave us merch. We had some that didn't require any. We had a pumpkin painting party, that if your name was pulled in the raffle, if you were in school on time, in your seat, your name got thrown in a raffle, and we were able to generate who could go, and these were the kids who came and got to paint pumpkins that day. We had an attendance is amazing day. You can see all the staff in their t-shirts, and the Cosmans own a farm, and they gave us the straw to use for the maize, and the kids love this. And when you think about it, we're a city school. Not a lot of kids have been out to a farm. They absolutely love this. And we timed all the kids, and then we listed the winners at the end of the day, who won, and it was fun. The only problem we had a lot of hay fever people who were really mad at me at the end of the day, but it was okay.
It was great.
It was all good.
So great.
Yeah, this was an attendance party on the 10th of October. Get it? 10 dance. You came on the 10th. So this was Wendy's class last year.
Yeah, so it was great. So she played music over
the PA.
And then all the kids got to get up and dance. And here's a really cute video of my kids. They were so into it. And you can see most of them had their brown shirts on, a Browns hat.
And then they submitted their videos, and we voted as a school who had the best dance. I don't remember how it all worked out.
They
We
were
put 'em on
really
the
into
announcements.
it.
Yeah.
They're so cute.
Yeah, first graders, you gotta love them. I think we waited till the end of the day to do it.
Yes, which was
Yeah.
perfect.
They have their backpacks on. You can see
Yeah.
we riled them out and sent them home with their mom and dad. That's good. And then we didn't really get, this year we've gotten these beautiful posters from the Browns Foundation. Last year we made our own. The art teacher, to kick it off, the kids made their own. That's the raffles we're talking about and some of the merch.
So some of the items that the Browns gave us, you can see they're very nice, high-quality book bags, which I see several students still carrying and using those this year. But, just some hats and water bottles and gloves and folders, and it was, we did have some nice stuff to share with the students on raffle days. They got to come down and pick out what they wanted.
But the best thing happened in May when they called us out of the blue and they said, hey, what are you guys doing like 3 days from now? Do you think if we sent a player out, and the whole foundation comes and we bring all kinds of toys and things for the kids to play with, would you want that? And we're like, yes. So they came up, they brought this giant van full of stuff that like,
Chomps was there.
yeah, Chomps, the mascot, came. And if you forward, you could see Craig, you can see, and Chase.
So we were supposed to have a different player, and at the last minute, he got tested and was positive for COVID. So they said, we're on our way out the door. Would anyone please come to this school with us? And Chase Winovich was brand new and was like, I'm coming. And he was so great. He was dancing with them, cheering with them, and they played games with kids that were there, and it was just wonderful. And obviously, Chomps was a big hit, so.
Yeah. And then out of this, if you forward to the next one, right there, we were able to pull 40 students' names. They limited us to 40 kids. And those kids had to have, I think I did look at attendance, like you had to have 10 or fewer days. And I got a little bit of concern from parents at some point, because we were also dealing with COVID at this time. So we were fairly generous. If you missed less than 10 days that year, we put you into the raffle. And those 40 children were able to come, and they stayed after the big assembly for another 40 minutes with the Browns Foundation. And they ran them through drills like this, and the kids had so much fun. I mean, it was the greatest day.
And these are obviously Browns photographers, because those pictures
Yeah.
are amazing.
Yes.
So,
You can see. So just to look a little bit at our data and what are the numbers showing us, I kind of took it was hard to gather data on this with it being so new, but I was able to look at a couple different factors. Second grade did something really interesting. The Browns loved this when we showed them our end of the year information. We had a second grade class that for, I'm not sure, was it a month that they did it or however long, they charted whose percentage of attendance was the best in the class. And whosever percentage that day was the best, they got to come in from recess first. So this was like in the middle of January or February where it's cold outside. So whoever got to come in first, and that's always a big thing because then you get to go to the cafeteria and eat first. So the classes were challenging each other. We looked at the 10 most at-risk students in the building in terms of attendance, people who really struggled to get to school for lots of different reasons. And 50% of those kids came on all 4 of the stay in the game days, which is really good because they really had concerning attendance. When I looked at tardies, that was the biggest thing. If you look at the brown bar, the orange bar before it and the orange bar after the brown bars, those were days that weren't stay in the game days. But on the stay in the game days, you can see there's a significant difference in fewer tardies. Now, the December one was also a snow day, and that we had to reschedule and schedule again, and it all kind of got mixed up in terms of which day was the stay in the game day. But you can see they got it together. We kicked off this year in September, and we have parents sign pledges for us, and you can see those white papers, and then we display them in the hallway. You can see the beautiful stay in the game sign that we put up over the Garfield sign that day. And
those pledges, the parents
Yeah.
and students are both signing it, pledging that they will be in school on time as much as possible.
so we went out onto the front lawn with tables and the pledges, and we got probably, I'd say, more than 60% of our pledges signed. It's amazing how many kids really walk or drive cars in the morning. So we also found through that's a great way to reach out to parents. Like they're right there in the morning. We're doing a one school, one book kickoff, and we're going to do it out front in the morning like that. Hand the parents the book. We're going to be wearing our stay in the game. The theme will be stay in the game, keep reading. So it's really neat what we've learned through a lot of these last few years. And then the Browns also give invitations to games. They'll call up and say, we have some tickets. We want you to look at kids who have been coming to school, and let's reach out to them. So this is one family who got to go to a preseason game. There's Sawyer and Nolan, 2 boys in our school, and their mom and dad. Let me go to the next slide. And this is Bailey and her family. Look at Bailey's face.
So we invited them to come to the board meeting, and this was a letter that they had written that they said we could share with you. So, hello, Karen McGinty. I'm sorry we won't be able to attend the board meeting to speak about our experience at the Browns game. Please feel free to share this email and pictures that I have sent. I want to say Stay in the Game program is great. It was awesome how they came to the school last year with a mascot. This year, starting off with a raffle to attend the Cleveland Browns game was amazing. Never would I imagine Bailey would be one of the winners, especially being a first grader. We have never been there before, and it was a memorable experience. And when she says that, not a single person in the family had been able to go to a Browns game yet. Bailey and I were able to attend the game with her father, Robert, and her brother, Matthew. The experience was mind-blowing. You can see in the pictures how excited Bailey was during the game. We all cheered, booed, and barked the entire time. It was so much fun. I hope there are more things like this to come for more families to experience. Thank you for helping make memories that would normally not be made. That gets me like
I know.
a little emotional.
So sweet.
Yeah.
So it gets even better because the Browns called last week and they said, hey, listen, we really want you to nominate. It was a general email to all people in the Stay in the Game network. And they said, please nominate teachers in your building who have had a significant impact on culture, on attendance. And I thought, okay, I'll get to that. And then I had a bunch of stuff happen. I never got to it. Then I got an email from the Browns. Karen, we'd really like you to nominate. We know you're doing a great job. We respect your school so much. So we nominated some teachers in the building, and all 3 of them were accepted to be flag bearers on the field at the Steelers game on Thursday night. So we're really excited.
And Laura.
These 3 women,
Yeah.
though, the 3 teachers here, have single-handedly helped project PBIS in the building.
For sure.
They lead things. They answer teachers. They run meetings. They're just phenomenal, and they're great teachers. Such an asset to our district. So they're going to be rewarded, which makes me feel good that they have done such hard work. And
For
it'll be a
sure.
neat thing. And then we also have a student piece to Thursday night's game. And did you want to talk a little bit about that, Wendy, Laura? And talk
I don't
about
know
your
actually
kids?
what she's going to do,
She's going to
but
be the coin toss manager.
So, she gets to be the coin toss manager at the game, and Laura is just, again, an amazing student. and she comes in to do meetings. I'm not sure what group that is that she's
Yeah.
doing.
Laura Medley is a 5th grade student at Garfield School, and she is on our Portrait of a Bee team.
Portrait of a Bee team.
And she is a 5th grader who then goes down to 1st grade and shares
Yes.
what's happening in the building with our portrait work.
So she comes into my class to share what happened at those meetings, because my kids are a little too young for those meetings or to be leaders at that. And so when we presented in Good Morning Garfield this morning that she won this award and that she would get to be at the game, my kids were just screaming and so happy and clapping and jumping up and down because she's like our girl. And I did get to have her in 1st grade, so I know she's amazing and so well deserving of this honor.
Laura's on our safety patrol. Laura is a true leader in the building. She has great attendance and does community service work within our community, also with her family. So we were really proud that she was nominated and accepted to be the coin toss captain at the Thursday night game also. So as you can see, this has generated so much positive and so much camaraderie between the staff. I think when we wear our shirts, we're really proud. I've talked to community members who said they see our kids out of the shirts, and you see them in them all the time. They wear them all the
All
time.
the time.
And they're very proud to be part of such a positive, really, really energized. I think it's changed how they look at attendance.
I did have a little boy who always comes to school on time every day, but I got a text from his mom one day. She was like, please tell me he was there on time and in his seat, because he is so nervous that today might be the day that you have a raffle, and we're nervous he was late. And so you can see even the kids are helping the parents make sure that there's an importance there for both of them. You know, the kids are making the parents know, like, I want to be here on time. So it's doing a really good job with both sides.
So we could go on and on, but
It's great.
thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Did anybody have any questions or?
Thank you so much. That's very exciting, and I love how it ties into PBIS as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for all your work with
It's been
that.
great. Thank you.
You know, it was a great presentation, and your energy is just off the charts. I could definitely, I'm sure it generates in the building.
It's fun.
So well done.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks.
Yeah, there's a lot of special in our district. It's nice to be able to share it out again, and thank you to Garfield for being leaders. The last item that I want to present to the board this evening is in regards to facilities and redistricting. As you're aware, we did complete a community survey of potential redistricting options towards the very beginning of this school year. And we do have those results back, and we want to share them with our board as well as with the community this evening. Those results following this evening will be available on our redistricting and facilities webpage as well. So we do encourage families and residents to visit our webpage for more detailed information. I know Amy Busby is constantly working on making sure the information on there is updated, and that's going to be our main hub for communication in regards to the redistricting and facilities process. We are on a timeline. We presented the timeline to the board previously, and we are on time. The goal for today's presentation is to provide a refresher of what the plans are that we were looking at, provide information on the feedback that we received. The information regarding the feedback that we received tonight is not only information from the community and the parents from the survey that went out, it's also feedback and information that we received from our students and our staff last year through district meetings and surveys that we did in the spring prior to summer break. So we have a lot of great information today. I also have a general direction to recommend to the board today once we have shared all of this information. I mentioned at the beginning of the year when we shared our timeline, things seemed like they were moving kind of slow for quite a while, largely due to the pandemic, and also our want to make sure we were getting appropriate feedback in these very big decisions that we're moving forward with. But we're at a point now where we're getting towards decision time. Beginning tonight, I think you all are going to start seeing some progress in a definite direction, and that'll continue as we head through this school year. So at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Kwolek up. She's going to talk about and introduce some of the plans for the redistricting process.
Good. All right, so we want to start by just reviewing the 3 different plans that people had to see. And the first plan is the green plan, and that's subtitled Redrawing Lines. So it is, as it says, it would be maintaining the current basic district configuration, so the K-5 elementary schools with the preschool housed in one of our K-5 elementaries. The 2 middle schools being 6-8 buildings, and then at a minimum, the inter-district boundaries being reconfigured. So regardless of the plan piece, we still do need to do some reconfiguring due to the elementary sizes being inconsistent. So we have some elementaries, as many people are aware, that are small and others that are larger. So regardless of what we do, that needs to be corrected. So that's why you'll see in the second bullet point, the plan has to include some possible renovations, replacements, and or closures of a building, which then can create some potential upfront short-term construction costs or potential long-term costs. So regardless, this plan is still a short-term solution because you may be required then to redistrict again in a few years, depending on the long-term enrollment numbers. So that would be the green plan. The next plan was the yellow plan, again known as the consolidation plan. So in this plan, you're decreasing the number of elementary buildings, looking at the preschool either remaining at Northrop Elementary or being relocated into a potential preschool center. The elementary buildings would transition to K through 4 buildings. AI Root Middle School would become a 5-6 building. There'd be some potential construction costs there due to adding additional students. Claggett Middle School would become a 7-8 building, so potential construction costs there as well to renovate or replace that building. Potentially operating cost savings long-term because you create some additional space in both those locations. Maintaining the current high school. This becomes a longer-term solution which creates some stability in the district. Finally, the gray plan, which looks at grade level buildings and is what it says it is, grade level buildings. So you look at 1 preschool kindergarten center for the entire district. You create 2 buildings, 2 grade level buildings. You can look at an east and a west, 2, 3, 4 buildings. Again, similar to the yellow plan, you transition AI Root to a 5-6 building with clearly some potential construction costs due to adding some space to that building for the additional students, transitioning Claggett to a 7-8 building, and again, some construction costs there due to adding students to that building, or renovating or replacing. Again, maintaining Medina High School. So long-term solution here as well, which also creates some stability. So I know Amy's going to come up now and share basically some details about the survey that we provided to the community, and that'll give the district some background as well.
And I just want to briefly mention in regards to the survey, and I know I've said this before when I announced that the survey was going out. Our intention with the survey was not to take a vote on the different plans. This is a very challenging process that impacts different families, different staff members, different community members across the district in various ways. Unfortunately, there's no perfect way in order to do redistricting. So our goal as a school district is to work with our Board of Education as well as with our communities, including our students, our staff, everybody in that, to make decisions that are in the best interest of our students and our students' futures. and not just about decisions that are in the best interest of our students and our students' futures, but also looking long-term and trying to make decisions that are in the best interest of the district's future as well. So the information that Amy's going to share tonight is feedback in order to help us make that decision on what's the best direction to move towards.
So, as Mr. Sable mentioned, we spent several months collecting data from not only community members and other stakeholders, but our students and our staff as well. So I want to preface going through the feedback that we received recently from the most current survey with some information about who responded to that survey. So as you can see, the majority of respondents were parents and guardians, and certainly we expect that to happen. But we also had community members who maybe didn't have a specific connection with our school district. We also had parents and some alumni that answered the survey, as well as community members of former students, community members who may or may not have ever had students in the district. I also thought it might be interesting for you to see the age groups of people who responded to the survey, and the primary group of respondents were in that 35 to 44 age group. So a lot of our elementary parents were taking the time to complete the survey. So we've received information from pretty much every age group from 18 to 24 all the way up to 65 plus. So felt that there was a rather well-rounded representation. So what I want to go through just quickly is the information that you see here is all of the stakeholder input. So information that we received from students, staff, and community members who completed the most recent survey. And what you see here is input from for the green plan. So some of the pros were maintains neighborhood schools, use current resources already in the district, less overall change, creating consistency for students, allows more students to walk or ride, least amount of change, stress on students and families, seemingly lower upfront overall costs, including busing and construction costs, provides the opportunity for buildings to receive needed renovations, creates a stronger and more diverse sense of community, fewer transitions for students, and little or no change to transportation. Some of the cons that were expressed were it's a short-term fix, and we kind of talked about that when Dr. Kwolek went through the plans. It's an immediate solution that we'd have to revisit in a few years. Cost to the community and the speed of adjustments as the plan continues to evolve. So as the years go on, we're going to find ourselves doing this over and over again. Funding buildings that need to be taken down, inconsistency in grades 6 to 8, division among students at Root and Claggett, creates long-term uncertainty, does not help even distribution of students. It's reactionary, not proactive. Potential loss of neighborhood schools, and it's not a good stewardship of tax dollars. The yellow plan, pros that were expressed, it seems to be a middle ground. The overall long-term solution creates stability throughout the district. Overall agreement with the concept of a 5, 6, 7, 8 building. Easier transition to large buildings, so students moving through the middle school than the junior high and the high school. 6th grade students would be with peers closer in age, would help with transitional development and social issues. Access to high school resources for junior high students under this model. Allows students to be introduced to their graduating class much earlier. Eliminates 2 separate middle schools, decreasing the divide between them. Smaller class sizes at the elementary buildings, more streamlined, reduces disparity and brings the community together, bridges that socioeconomic divide, and cost savings to the district with a reduction of buildings. Some of the cons that were expressed were transition to multiple buildings, losing that rapport that has been built in their current school. Closing elementary buildings could create larger class sizes at the elementary level. Cost factors for possible construction are passed down to taxpayers. Transportation, longer bus rides for some students, and Claggett's need for several upgrades. And there's were several comments about removing trailers. Downtime for potential construction, varying start times, change in athletic opportunities for 7th and 8th grade students, and movement of staff to other buildings. The grade plan pros are more stability, balanced enrollment, kids are with their age group, consolidation of resources, allows for better collaboration and consistent instruction, sustainable long-term, prepares students for easier transitions as they move into middle school. Students are all together through their entire education. Long-term cost savings, increases equal learning opportunities for students, more cohesion and less disparity in the district. So that you see a theme between the yellow and the green plan. Cons to the grade plan, too many transitions, so there's a lack of consistency. So you see that there's two sides of that. Transportation concerns, time on the bus, and the cost of transportation. It's a radical change to what we currently experience in our district now. Families with students in multiple buildings, upfront construction costs, removes neighborhood schools, loss of athletic opportunities at the middle school level, and less time with a teacher for them to get to know students and their families. Are there any questions for me?
I have one. What was the total number of people that responded about?
So we had over 1,000, so we had close to 1,100 respondents.
And how many people are within the school district boundaries, do you know?
I would say the majority of those that responded.
No, I mean, how many total voters are in Medina City School District?
Oh, that I don't
Like,
know.
is it 20,000?
At least.
Okay, so really a small percentage of respondents compared to the number of voters out there.
That's correct.
Okay.
It sounds though like statistically the results of our survey are consistent with other surveys that we've done in the past.
Yes, it's been very consistent, which has been a great thing because it shows consistency and people's interest in being a participant in this process. All right, thanks.
And based off the feedback that we've received, our recommendation is to move forward with the yellow plan. After reviewing the feedback, it's clear that the yellow plan provides the middle ground to meet multiple needs of the school district. Through the feedback we've received, we have heard people's concern and importance about having individual elementary buildings as opposed to grade level elementary buildings at this time. At the same time, being able to take the opportunity for some consolidation through a 5-6 building and a 7-8 grade building is both financially sound as well as academically sound for those grade levels. And that's because of the way we'll be able to distribute resources within those buildings. And when we're talking about anything from like a sub-coverage to the implementation of a makerspace, when we're able to make those opportunities available for all of our students at the same time, it creates access for every one of our students. And one of the challenges that we really face right now is ensuring equitability at all of our buildings. And that is something that we do strive for and work very hard for. But the reality, when you have 7 elementaries to middle schools, I talked about makerspaces earlier, they weren't implemented equally across the district. We staggered that implementation because financially that's the way we needed to do it, as well as the resources that were available. The other thing is by consolidating resources at the 5th and 6th grade level, it also expands opportunities when we do implement things such as a makerspace. For instance, currently we have middle school makerspaces at both Root and Claggett. Well, imagine if we had those combined into a much larger makerspace in one facility for all of our 7th and 8th graders, and being able to expand the kind of opportunities and resources available within that makerspace. In order to move forward with the yellow plan, it does require addressing Claggett, which came across loud and clear that families, staff members felt like that facility needed to be addressed. So that's going to be a major part of the conversation moving forward. Claggett was identified as one of our buildings for replacement by the OFCC when they came in and reviewed all of our facilities a few years ago. In addition, what we know would need to happen as part of this yellow plan is an expansion at Root. So we would most likely be looking at adding a wing onto Root so it could house all of our 5th and 6th graders in both of those buildings. In terms of our elementary buildings and the impact that the yellow plan, and I'm just trying to share the definites with you tonight, I'm pretty confident that we would be looking at the closure of an elementary building with the yellow plan. Because with the yellow plan, we would be pulling 5th grade out of our elementary buildings, which would create space. And that's a good thing and it's a bad thing at the same time. It's a good thing because we have many of our buildings where we really need the extra space. We have some buildings, though, that currently have fairly low enrollment. So it's going to bring the enrollment down in those buildings to a level where it's just not going to make sense to continue to operate those buildings as school buildings. That doesn't mean that those buildings don't continue to operate within our district in some capacity, but it does mean that we'll have to shift around where the students are attending. The yellow plan will also definitely include some redrawing of boundaries. Obviously, if we end up needing to close a school or two, those students are going to have to go to a different building, and we'll have to figure out how that's going to happen. A concern we heard with the green plan was how drastic the redrawing of boundaries could be. Because as we've talked about in the past, the challenge that we're facing is the outward growth within the community, and Medina is a great place, so people stay. So as the children are aging out of the inner ring communities, the young families, as of yet, have not rotated back in. So we're seeing decreased enrollment at some of our more established elementary buildings. So with the green plan, we would have to do some more dramatic redrawing of those lines, moving the outside ring students into the inner ring schools where there's room. Pulling the 5th grade out will create some natural room at those buildings. So the hope is that that will decrease the amount of boundary redrawing that we will need to do. We will still need to do it, though. Also, the other thing that's going to need to be discussed as we move forward is, are we going to address anything at our elementary buildings in terms of the facilities? We know with the yellow plan, assuming our community supports a bond issue, that we have to address Claggett and we have to address Root. But we have other decisions that we have to make in terms of this plan as well. Do we want to address anything with the elementary buildings? Are we interested in working on our facilities to improve any of our older facilities that are going to remain open? The other conversation that we're having is we're discussing or beginning to discuss our athletic facilities as well. And I'm going to speak openly that our athletic facilities are not the priority, but it's something we need to consider when we're talking about a bond issue and going out to our community. because we do have things within athletics that have to be addressed. For instance, within our stadium at Ken Dukes, we every year we talk about our visitor stands. We get those inspected every year to make sure they're safe, so they are safe, but they are older, and it's something that is on the cusp of eventually needing replacement, which is a fairly major cost. So if we can tackle some of those projects as part of this issue, we're going to look into doing that. And Dr. Kwolek and I already have a meeting set up to start that conversation with our athletic department, so we can look at those facilities and work with Mr. O'Cole as well, our Director of Business Affairs. So where are we going from here? More community input. We need more community input. So now that we have the yellow plan, we talked about back when we introduced these 3 possible plans that these are general plans and hundreds of different possibilities can happen within these plans. Well, now we've got the general framework. Now we've got to start putting together what that framework looks like. So we're going to start having more in-depth conversations with our architects so that they can provide us with feedback on the best directions to go in terms of route and Claggett. If we end up rebuilding Claggett, one of the questions is, what's the best location to do that? And that's something that has to be discussed and looked into, and the architects will provide feedback on that as well. I think sometimes it's assumed, well, you'd build Claggett right where Claggett is. That may not be the most economic way to do it. One thing we do know is that we're not in need of purchasing any new land or anything like that, that we have plenty of land within the district where we can look at various opportunities and collaborate to decide what would be the best location. The goal is that we have some definite decisions in putting this plan together once we move into the spring. We are scheduled to put a bond on the ballot to have the community vote on moving forward with this construction plan next fall, so a year from now. It's vitally important that we actually have specifics, including rendered potential drawings and things like that, so the community would know exactly what we're looking at and what we're talking about and asking them to spend their tax dollars on. So we have a lot of work to do this coming school year, still a lot of decisions to make. And one thing I do want to make clear, and I feel like I say this every time I do a redistricting facilities conversation, we have to redistrict. And that's just the reality of the situation we're in right now due to the imbalance at our elementary buildings. So whether that process includes some restructuring of our district or some upgrades to our facilities or even replacing some of our facilities, we know for sure that redistricting needs to happen. So as we go through this process and we're making decisions down the road, if we're in a position, and I want to say glass half full, but if we're in a position, and we'll listen to our community, of course, that's what we're here for, but the community doesn't feel comfortable with heading this direction, we will have to shift to a different game plan and still look at how are we going to adjust our boundaries at the elementaries to level out the student populations within our elementary buildings. So again, as I mentioned at the beginning, we're really trying to think long-term. What can we do now so that the district isn't in this position in the next 5-10 years to shift students around? Because we want to create long-term stability. And we believe that this yellow plan creates that long-term stability for the district with future flexibility if the district in the future decides to head in a different direction, whether it's under current leadership or different leadership. Any questions?
I have a couple questions. Have we gotten the long-range plan of, as far as enrollment down the road? Have we gotten that back yet?
We actually just met with the OFCC about that a week or two ago, and they are in the process, and they'll have that this fall. We have the enrollment study that they did for us right before the pandemic. I have talked to several surrounding districts who have already gone through this process, and I brought this up with the OFCC when we met with them. One word of caution that we were given is to take their enrollment studies with a grain of salt. And what I mean by that is I think it's a good tool to help provide us direction, but it also has limitations as well. For instance, when they do their enrollment studies, they're not considering land that could be developed into housing. All they consider is land that is already under contract to be developed into houses. So that's something we need to keep in mind and discuss as we go through the process.
Okay. Second question. When RIT was originally built, how many students was it meant to hold? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, I don't have those numbers. I could get those for you, though.
Okay.
I think those numbers are actually on our website already in the OFCC's report of the students' building's capacity. But that's another thing that when we have our community roundtables, which will be starting this fall, that we discuss, because we're going to have to make some decisions of where we want to go with the OSCC for help funding and where we want to make some decisions as a school district or as a community because we think it's best for our kids. Because the OFCC is very mathematical in their calculations. For instance, they might utilize something that is a closet at a building and include that in square footage for having room to fit students, where we are not going to put desks in a closet and teach students in a closet. So it's just some of the things that have to be considered. I was talking to another district very close to us that were told that they could put elementary students in their high school. So like I said, it's just very mathematical, the process that they use when they look at the numbers and things like that.
Okay. Oh, crap. All right. Sorry. The 7-8, I mean, I like the 5, 6, 7, 8 concept. However, I think everybody in this room, if they lived in Medina, got their new tax valuation. Mine went up $40,000. So I would find it hard pressed, even though it comes, with a thing that says, well, this doesn't mean necessarily this is how much your taxes are going up, but they're going to go up. So we have to really hold down the cost. And then and I've heard this from a number of people who are in athletics, that when you go to 178 building, I think which Strongsville did, they field 2 teams, an A team and a B team. Would that be something that we would consider?
Absolutely, and we've already initially had some of those conversations through the athletic department, but not just Strongsville. Brunswick just went from 3 middle schools down to 1 middle school. The goal of this is not to take opportunities away from our students. The goal is actually to increase opportunities. Just to mention another one that I've heard consistently since I've been in this district is the lack of instrumental music up at the upper elementary level that used to be there. Well, this could be a financially feasible way to do that because you're bringing it to one location instead of 7. So all those kinds of conversations are going to be part of the process moving forward.
Okay, I remembered my other question. I didn't see anything there on preschool. Would it be feasible that preschool could move into the building we would think about closing, and so that maybe would be Heritage because it's maybe a better setup than some of the other buildings.
That could be feasible, and those are exactly what we're going to be discussing going into the community discussions. Yeah, those are the kinds of discussions we're going to be having. Because there are different options. When Dr. Kwolek went through the list, I think one option was leaving it right at Northrop, which is a good option, but then that also means that there needs to be less non-preschool students at Northrop. So we might have to move some out. Moving preschool to its own location and definitely utilizing a building that maybe isn't serving as a K through 4 building is a definite possibility. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Sable. I know a lot of work has gone into this. I know that there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. I do appreciate that the yellow plan will allow us to be more equitable with our resources, more collaborative. Instead of the buildings competing for those resources, they can be spread more evenly amongst the buildings. I don't know if community members always realize when we talk about how the buildings at the ends of town, like particularly Waite and Northrop, have higher class sizes than the buildings that are more inside, the Garfield, Canavan, Fenn. And I think that's important. The district has done a lot to get smaller class sizes at those elementary levels, but they're still skewed very widely amongst the different buildings. So to be able to get those smaller class sizes amongst all our buildings, to eliminate some of the competition, I think, at the middle schools. And, we are one district, and I think it's important for all of our students to realize we are one district. It's not this building versus that building, and this will do that and be best for our students. So thank you for all the work that has been done and continues to be done.
Hey, Aaron, can I interrupt? I wanted to give Jeannie the numbers. AI Route was built in 1995 for a 6 through 8 building, and it was built to house 828 students.
Okay, Mr. Chambers, are you ready?
Okay, I'm going to blow right through this. Yes, if it please the board. The district bank balance decreased $6.7 million in August to $80 million. This is $3.4 million below last year at this time. 5-year forecasted revenues were above last August by $568,000. All revenue sources except real property taxes account for this increase. The 5-year forecasted expenditures were also above last August by $584,000. All expenses except capital outlay account for this increase. The sales tax fund balance decreased by $2.6 million. Decreased to $2.6 million. I know you were looking at me, Mr. Ross. The district spent approximately $1.2 million in August, with the majority of expenditures on roofing and paving. The rec center capital fund balance decreased to $108,000. The district spent $83,000 on parking and assessment and design. The district received $89,000 in investment income for August. The total collected for the current fiscal year is approximately $75,000 above last year at this time. And finally, the district has a general fund true days cash estimated to be 230 days. This is down from July by 20 days and below last year by 15 days. Any questions on the financials? Okay, over to the appropriations. I was telling Dr. Kwolek I was here until 6:30 last Friday getting these done so you could see this over the weekend. And then came Mr. O'Call saying, hey, we got a $550,000 grant. Could you add that on? I said, sure, no problem. And then Angie Seller said, we received a grant also. Could you add that on? And then Dawn Cipro over at Claggett said, we really need an update for our 09s. Could you go ahead and do that? So I tried. So this is what I have for y'all. We have a Total appropriation of $136 million going out for approval. Of that, $85 million is for the general fund. This is a $3.8 million increase over last year. We also have a $10 million appropriation for the substitute levy. That's $700,000 over last year at this time. We have a student wellness and success fund that we still have. Dr. Kwolek was good enough to get back to me this morning and say, hey, if we still have those monies, her assumption and my assumption was we could still use those monies, so we're appropriating all the monies available, $306,000. The elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds, which are known as your ESSER funds, we're appropriating $3.8 million. This is down $1.4 million because we spent $1.4 million last year. We also have, I mentioned the OFCC Safety and Security Grant. Actually, this was a grant that Mr. Whitaker went out for, and Mr. O'Call wanted me to make that statement. Mr. Whitaker went out for the board here last year, and we got, I believe it's $50,000 per building. Is that right?
Yeah, the original grant was for $100,000 per building, and then no schools in the Medina County area were awarded that grant, but they reopened it up, and we got $50,000 per building. So
that increases our 599 account from $128,000 to $678,700. Let's see, our capital grants are basically our 071 fund is up to $5.15 million. That's up $200,000 from last year. I already mentioned that our 006 funds are up because of a small grant, so that's a total of $3.6 million. And let's see, for audit purposes, I increased the 024 fund, which is our employee benefit and self-insurance fund, up to $12.5 million. Because we are self-insured, we have to pay for claims, we have to pay for fees, so we're just making sure that we get approved by our auditors, because they come back every year on me with this, so I'm throwing that out there for their purpose. The 027 fund is down by $50,000. We over-appropriated last year, so I tried to match it more to what we spent last year. Questions on our appropriations?
What is that, special revenue? So that bond retirement that bond is expiring? That's expiring this year?
That's expiring this year, that's correct. We have a bond for, I believe it's our transportation and energy bond, that's expiring. We have one final payment here, October.
October?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. It is time in the agenda now for board communications. Ms. Pritchard, would you like to start us off?
As much as I'm sure all of you want to discuss how the Browns could have lost yesterday, I do want to thank Mrs. Busby on the wonderful community night. We had a great crowd and kickoff for the class of 2035, which I told Mr. Shields I probably won't be around to see, but it was nice to see him as being little. At the same time, I got to work with the high school cafeteria manager, and I asked her, really, is a hot dog and hamburger lunch considered a deluxe lunch? And she informed me, absolutely not. The options for deluxe lunches are like popcorn, chicken bowl, nacho lunch, warm Bavarian pretzels, French bread, garlic cheese pizza, and gluten-free meals. So I just kind of wanted to clear that up because a couple people asked me that. Medina City Schools Foundation met last week. They will host the Harlem Wizards November 10th at the high school. The Wizards will be going to the elementary buildings for short assemblies on that day, so everybody will get to see them. The policy committee met a couple weeks ago, reviewed 3 policies with more to come in October, and the finance committee meets Wednesday at 6. All our fall sports teams are off to a great start. both the cross-country teams, soccer teams. In fact, the girls are playing right now at Avon Lake. Football, volleyball, and tennis teams. I've been able to catch most of the sports, but I got to get to tennis yet. It just falls at a bad time for me. And the band did a great job with their band show a week ago Saturday. Their new theme is Lord of the Rings. And then on the agenda tonight, and he's also here, I see that Scott Quaid is going to retire at the end of the year. He has developed an outstanding debate program and team, plus he is an outstanding teacher. I do want to say that when he came to the high school, I did train him on the proper way to do cafeteria duty, and he was by far one of my very best people that I ever trained. So he could probably do that as a paraprofessional if he wanted to. So congratulations, Scott. That's it. Thank you.
All right, I just have a couple quick things that I wanted to run through. So we did have the curriculum meeting last Monday. I can't keep track of the days anymore. Don't hold me accountable for that. Yeah, Mina and a couple of the teachers showed us the job program that she presented today. I think it's next level. It's absolutely incredible. And I'm really glad that we have the resources and stuff to be able to offer something like that to our students. I think it will definitely kind of change the path that some of those students may not have been on if they weren't at Medina. In addition to that, also at the curriculum meeting, I just wanted to mention that we discussed about the Empower book, and we had some really good discussions about some of the meanings and the teachings in the book and how they relate to our district and how we might be able to help implement that and keep it in mind when we go forward in further curriculum meetings. And then finally, touching base on the state report card that we had. I mean, it's fantastic. I thank everybody that works here. I thank the students too, because you can't really have a report card to grade the students without the students. And I just can't say enough about everybody that works to give the best educational experience possible at Medina. And yeah, I'll sit here and say that 10 more times. So I'm good now.
I just wanted to share probably what the others have also mentioned. Thank you, Amy, for putting together the Spirit Night. It was a lot of fun. Got to cook some brats with Ryan and Aaron. And I agree with you, Gene. It was a great crowd. So thank you, Amy, for putting that together. And it's good for the community to everybody come together. So a lot of people had a lot of fun. And then I also want to share what Aaron and Joe was talking about, the report card. And thank you to our staff, because that's a reflection of the staff and their hard work. And when you see Karen with all her energy and enthusiasm and passion, I mean, times 10 academic buildings? I mean, just wow. So proud of the staff for their hard work and that report card and Karen and everything they do at Garfield, so, and throughout the district. And then the last thing is, again, you already mentioned it, Gene, Scott's retirement. I've been to several debate tournaments as a spectator and as a judge, and watching our kids, because of what Scott has taught them, it's just unbelievable. And they are always at the top echelon of debating, speech and debating, and they're always going to the state and the national tournaments. And so, and he's one of those diamond coaches, which there's only a few of those around in the state and in the hall. And I think he's also in the debate Hall of Fame, speech and debate, Ohio Speech and Debate Hall of Fame. So just congratulations, Scott. We love you, and hope at the end of the year, hope you enjoy your retirement. So, thank you.
I'll be brief, or at least try to be. We had a Access TV committee meeting a week ago Tuesday. Talked about quite a few things. There's going to be some updated policies and procedures and a new memo of understanding coming at some point. The last one was from 2001, I think, so it's been a long time. Plus I know Mr. O'Call and Mrs. Busby, there'll be some discussions, I'm sure, with you, Aaron, over how we want to, with the district, work with the Access TV, et cetera. So that's coming. My wife and I went to the marching band show, which was, brought a lot of memories back for us from high school and whatnot. It was a good time. Lots of, not just Medina, but all the bands there were really good. But I think the highlight was they had Kent State Golden Flashes marching band there. One of the cool things is their field commander was a field commander here in Medina, and that was Melissa Wallach. So that was kind of neat. Going to a high school marching band show brought back memories for myself because I did it when I was in school. So that was always fun to see a college marching band at a high school show. Went to the football game this past Saturday. That was a lot of fun. It's nice to get out and see lots of people in the community. Good time had by all, so it's always fun to see. And there was lots of people there. Parking lot was full, so that's always a good thing. Yeah, that's about it.
Thank you. I am also a part of the policy committee and curriculum committees that met a few weeks ago. And we'll be meeting again next month in a couple more weeks. The auditors were here at 5 o'clock prior to this meeting to discuss the results of our fiscal year 2020-2021 audit. A little behind, that was on them, nothing to do with us. And I do want to thank Mr. Chambers and his staff for working with the auditors, and we did have a clean audit opinion and report, which we appreciate and look forward to receiving those every year. For those community members who are interested, the state does post the audit opinions and reports on their website, and those are available for public review. I want to thank Mr. Sable for sharing the books with us. I always appreciate a good book, so thank you for sharing those with us. And I also want to thank you and your team for advocating on behalf of our district, whether it's at BASA or other levels down in Columbus, to advocate what is best for our district and our students. We really do appreciate that, and results are seen in changes to the report card and other initiatives, so thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. Quave, for attending our meeting this evening, and early congratulations. Thank you. We have reached the point in our agenda for public participation. I don't believe anyone has signed up to speak, so therefore I will waive the reading of the rules if that is all right with the board. And we will move on to our action items with our treasurer presenting first.
Yes, if it pleases the board, action item number 1, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the August 22 Treasurer's Report. Action item number 2, it is recommended the Board of Education approve the permanent appropriations for the 22-23 school year. Thank
So
you.
moved.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Thank you, Mr. Rosser. Are there any questions or comments from the board regarding these action items? Hearing none. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Ms. Pritchard.
Aye.
Mr. Ross.
Aye.
Mr. Nichols.
Aye.
Mr. West.
Aye.
Ms. Parkhurst.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sable?
First action item is donations. It is recommended that the Board of Education accept the following donations to Medina City Schools. The one I would like to point out this evening is a donation of $1,565 to the Battered Women's Shelter on behalf of the Medina class of 2023. If you notice the really cool parking spots that our seniors paint, so this donation is the result of those students' work on those parking spots. Number 2, service agreement amendment. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the amendment to the service agreement between St. Francis Xavier School and PSI affiliates to remove the intervention specialist position for the 22-23 school year. Again, most usually when we're dealing with St. Francis, it's passed through funds and contracts. This is relevant, though, to the next item, service agreements. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following service agreements. And the one I was referring to is wraparound services. So they're making that amendment because they're making an adjustment for intervention specialist services for St. Xavier school students. In addition, we also have an agreement for Grant Us Hope, and I want to invite Dr. Kwolek up to say a few words about that program.
Thank you, Mr. Sable. I just wanted to share with the board that we're very excited about this opportunity. We have the Hope Squad program at our middle schools and high schools, and that came out of an assessment we did in the community where we realized that our students weren't prepared for some of the messages they were hearing from their peers who needed mental health support. And we also realized that sometimes peers will share with peers before they share with any adult when they need assistance. So the Hope Squad program trains peers what to do with messages when their friends need mental health support. So what Hope Squad does at the middle and high school level is train students in QPR, which is very similar, the way I explain it is CPR for mental health. And so we train our students in QPR, our Hope Squad members in middle and high school. And so we're very excited to bring Hope Squad to the elementary level. Now it will not bring those same things at that level because again we're talking about 6, 7, 8, and 9-year-olds, but what it will do is teach our students how to care for one another. It will start to look at mental health needs with elementary students, and so we're very excited to partner with Grant Us Hope to look at Hope Squads for our elementary students. So I just wanted to take a moment to share that with the board because as we continue to see the significant mental health needs in our community, we're very excited to bring this program to our elementary schools. So thank you.
And next up on the agenda is field trips. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following overnight field trips in compliance with Policy 2340. First one on here, Speak of the Devil, is speech and debate to Princeton. As Mr. Ross said, our speech and debate students, due to Mr. Quaid's work, really get great opportunities. So this is another one of those coming up this winter. The other 3 trips are for overseas, out of the country visits. All of these trips are pending student enrollment and interest and are paid for through fundraisers or through the individual families participating. Number 5 is a stipend payment. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the stipend payment to Tammy Patrick in the amount of $300 for serving as a cooperating teacher for a Notre Dame college student during spring semester of 22. And last but not least is personnel. I'd like to recommend to the board the following personnel pending completion of all required documentation per our Director of Human Resources. A few on here. Sierra is joining Claggett Middle School as an associate principal. We are expanding our administrative support at the middle school. At Claggett specifically, we are in a transitional period at Claggett and are looking at making some adjustments to what we're doing there in terms of PBIS as well as curricular. I do want to remind the board that Kim Halleck is serving as the interim principal at that building at this time. It is not our intent to maintain 3 associate principals at that building for the long term. That's for this year while Ms. Halleck is there as an interim principal. And we did not fill our 504 coordinator position, which was posted. So we've tried to adjust funds to account for that position. And I do want to thank Mina for making that sacrifice in her department. I know that puts more work on her and her department. I also want to congratulate Katie Hartung, and she's works over in our board office, but she just had a little baby boy, so she's requesting a leave. In addition, we have a recommendation for Mark Kelly as our head baseball coach. So that'll be in effect for this coming spring. And then we've got Mr. Quaid on here. And I thought for sure we'd get another year or two out of Mr. Quaid. I think I told him that a week or two ago when I ran into him in the hallway. Unfortunately for us, we're not. From talking to Mr. Quaid, though, I think he's had an outstanding and rewarding career. And moving on to that next phase is the next important step for him. I can tell you I'm impressed with how important it is to him in leaving the state of affairs of his classroom and the debate program in a continued high-achieving, high-level aspect. So despite not wanting to see Scott go, I appreciate his willingness to make that announcement this early and even be proactively involved in making sure these strong programs that he played such a major role in developing continue to be strong programs. And I also did want to point out to the board that in the past we have done little readings on our retirees each board meeting that we've had them. Scott's our first one, I think, on the agenda this year. We're actually changing that this year. So I'm sorry, Scott, but there's not a reading tonight. But what we are going to do is celebrate all of our retirees at a board meeting. I'm guessing probably in April because some of our staff retire in May, where we can invite them all in here and recognize all our retirees and get a cake or something and do a little more to show our appreciation for them.
I'll make a motion to approve the superintendent action items.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Any questions or comments from the board? I would like to thank Dr. Kwolek for sharing with us the information on the Hope Squad, and I think that is great that we are bringing that to our elementary buildings. So we can never start that too soon. So I do appreciate your work, not only getting it to our elementary students, but also getting it out of our middle school and our high schools. And it is a great program, and I'm very appreciative for what you do with that. Thank you. And I'm also, on a personal note, happy that my two boys had an opportunity to have classes with Mr. Quaid before he retired. Thank you. If there are no other further questions or comments, Mr. Chambers, will you call roll, please?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have one separate voting item. It is recommended to the Board of Education to approve Jean Pritchard as a volunteer for Medina City Schools.
Make a motion to approve action item.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Mr. West, any comments or questions from the board? I do want to point out that as a board member, Ms. Pritchard still had to go through all of the other background checks and everything that is done for all of our district volunteers. Thank you, Ms. Pritchard.
No problem.
Mr. Chambers, when you're ready.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Abstain?
Ms. Parkhurst?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our last action item on the board, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve a 1.5% salary increase for the superintendent effective August 1st, 2022. We did complete Mr. Sable's evaluation, and as part of his contract, he will receive a 1.5% increase for this contract year, but his contract allows the board to award any additional increases based on his annual evaluation, and the board felt that it was the right thing to do to award him an additional 1.5%. That would equal a total of 3%, which is consistent with the other administrator increases that were awarded earlier, a few months ago at a board meeting.
Make a motion to approve action item J.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Pritchard. Any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none?
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Mr. West?
Yes.
Ms. Parkers?
Aye.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Sable, for all that you do for our district. The board will now would like to go into executive session. If I could entertain a motion to go to executive session to consider the employment, dismissal, discipline, or compensation of a public employee or official, discussion with the board's legal counsel of disputes involving the board that are the subject of pending or imminent court action, specialized details of security arrangements and emergency response protocols where disclosure might reveal information that could jeopardize the district's security.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Mr. West.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Nichols. Mr. Chambers?
Yes, Mr. West?
Yes.
Mr. Nichols?
Aye.
Ms. Pritchard?
Aye.
Mr. Ross?
Aye.
Ms. Parkers?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please let me know that the board will not be taking any action upon our return from executive session. Thank you all for coming and enjoy your evening.